Ladies and gentlemen, it's time! Brought to you by Ringside, the best in boxing. It's the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast. Introducing first, fighting out of the Zapata Brand Studio in Berwick, Pennsylvania. He is an expert in boxing and bagels, George Zapata!
Hey guys, welcome to the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast. And after a big weekend of fights, who else to go to but Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Good night of fights on Saturday.
Oh, it was tremendous. Finally. You see what happens when you get the fighters who want to fight each other and get these fights together? This is what happens. And boy, we got to eat crow a little bit. This was kind of unexpected. When I spoke to you last, we both came up with a prediction that possibly we thought that this was going to be a washing by Devin Haney. But boy, were we wrong. What do you think?
You know, we were wrong. I mean, I think both of us said, hey, if Ryan Garcia is right, that he has the fast hands and the punching power, that he can make this an unbelievable fight. But neither one of us thought that he was going to be right. And I don't think it was just you and I. It was pretty much all of the boxing world that kind of felt that way.
What do you think changed?
Well, I think I remember a comment that Nick Khan, who used to manage Manny Pacquiao, he's now the CEO of the WWE. He said to me in like 2004, 2005, he said, Manny thrives in the chaos, meaning when all the craziness is going on, all that stuff, Manny's calm and he was able to, and I think that's kind of what it was with Ryan. I think, Ryan, he mentioned after the fight he has ADHD and he's had a history of mental health issues, which is nothing to joke around about and saying he's crazy. I hate that phrase, right? That is a bad phrase. But I think, Ryan was probably nervous, more nervous than normal, probably didn't really want to take the fight, but felt like he had to take the fight. And so all that attitude that he had, kind of made him behave very poorly. But then once he gets into fight week and all the, the stuff is swirling around him, that's more normal for him. And I think that's where he was at peace. And I think that he went in there. The other thing, George, I think that first punch that he hit Devin Haney with really changed the fight. I don't know that Haney ever fully recovered from that first left hook. What was it, 20 seconds into the fight he hurt him?
Yeah.
He was really staggering around the ring. I think that really, really, really hurt him. And I think that had a big, factor to go in the fight as well.
I never seen let's go back to Ryan's fight with Tank, because that's the one that we can kind of gauge off of as far as skill, high level fighting. I didn't see him act the way he fought against Tank as he did against Devin Haney.
Right.
Even the fact that Haney is a very skilled boxer, and I will say this: people are jumping on the Ryan Garcia bandwagon. I still believe but I still believe that his skills that he's very flawed. I just think he caught Haney off the jump. He got him bang, and that got him. I think you're right there. But what was all of a sudden the switch? Was it because of what you have said numerous times to me? Devin Haney cannot punch. That's a big problem when you get to this next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we say he can't punch, that's relative to Ryan, relative to Tank, relative to Teofimo Lopez. He can punch against lower level guys, right? But the guys that are the elite level that can take it, right? He doesn't have any snap relative at that level. And I think Ryan, sat there and he goes into this fight and he says, well, if I come out, and he said, meet me in the center. Remember, he said that at the press conference, meet me in the center and let's see. And I think it's almost sometimes like whistling past the graveyard, right? That's your best chance. What is your best pitch? Your fastball. So I've got Aaron Judge up with the bases loaded and it's 3-0 and I got to throw him a fastball down the middle and let's see if he can hit it. And I think, Ryan kind of had the same thing. Hey, look, I've got to throw my fastball if I'm gonna win this fight. And his fastball is that left hook. And so I think that when he landed it early, I think that changes his calculus too. He knows, okay, I have that in my back pocket, and I know I can hurt this guy with it. And I think that made a big difference for him.
It's hilarious that you came up with that point, because as I was working today, I'm thinking Devin Haney got caught with a left hook, right? So you came up with this analogy about baseball. If it's first and second, or man on second and third, no outs, and Aaron Judge is at the plate, you're gonna put him on, right? So you don't want Aaron Judge to beat you. Take
Right.
your chances with the fifth bat, right? What if you're saying I'm gonna make sure he throws a left hook? That's all he's got, and in my opinion, he's a one-trick pony with that. He has that one hook. That he really can really change the fight. How do you let him beat you with a left hook?
Well, I think what happened, think about it. Ryan can punch with the right hand. He's not as effective with the right hand because I think of the way his footwork goes, right?
Yeah.
So his left hook is his punch. But when he's in sync and he has you hurt, that right hand, he hits hard with it, right? And I think, at least one of the knockdowns, and if not maybe two of them, he lands the hook and hurts Devin, and then he finishes it by coming in with that right hand behind, right? Now,
Right.
of course, he's already hurt, but I think that gave him that second weapon that, even if Devin takes away at this point now, he takes away the left hook and he's diminished trying to take away the left hook, and you don't think as clearly and you don't perform as cleanly when you're diminished, but he had that right hand now that he had to worry about.
So 2 points on that. Were we fooled by Ryan Garcia?
I think a little bit, but not like some people are calling it the greatest troll job ever. I don't buy that. I think a lot of the stuff that he was doing was legit, right? I've talked to a lot of people about, what went on. And I know his weight cut was like the team wasn't sure what the hell he was doing, right? It was really not good. So, I think there was did he embellish a few things? Of course, I think he did that. But I think we saw a really good glimpse into Ryan Garcia at that fight week, in his public appearances. That was who this kid is.
And the other point would be on Devin Haney's side. Devin Haney hasn't really. I think Devin Haney and Bill Haney are the two father-son tandems that work. And when things go bad, people always say, change out, get somebody new. Is it time for Devin Haney to change a little bit?
I don't think so.
Neither do I.
He could have won the fight, right? He got knocked down 3 times, and it came down to the 12th round. He had it, and so depending on how you look at that at the end of that fight, I think, there's a number of factors too. You cannot forget Ryan Garcia did not make weight, and he didn't sweat those 3.5 pounds off that were the hardest, 3 pounds that you got to take off, right? Devin Haney did, and Haney, diminished him. When you make weight, you're diminishing yourself. And what Ryan did was he basically, spent money to buy himself an advantage. It's like you're on Wheel of Fortune, you buy a vowel, right? He went on there and he said, hey, I'll pay you money. Now, of course, it wasn't the $500,000 per pound. They negotiated it into the contract. It was $200,000 per pound, $600,000. But they went with the narrative, which is of course disingenuous, but typical Golden Boy. That's the kind of stuff that Golden Boy does. But it was disingenuous to say that it was $1.5 million he paid. But Ryan bought himself an advantage. He said, I don't want to make this weight. I don't want to diminish myself. I'll pay you money for you to let me go. And Devin Haney accepted it. If Devin Haney would have said, make the weight, do you think Garcia would have pulled out? Garcia would have kept going, because I think he realized that, he's not going to make that kind of money anywhere else.
And now before the fight, I did see the weigh, and I thought Devin Haney looked sunken in. And that was one of the first things I noticed. There's a narrative here that you're making an excuse for Devin Haney, but I know what it's like to try to cut that weight. It is incredibly difficult. It's just the last couple pounds, but that's the advantage. And then you rehydrate to whatever it is. If there's no rehydration clause, so be it. I was told Ryan Garcia was 158 pounds the night of the fight. I was told Devin Haney was heavier. So
I find that hard to believe. Haney put on 20 pounds.
He said he was heavier. The guy who knows him very well said he was heavier than 158. That came right from him, and they're very close. So
I haven't heard that, so I don't want to say that I don't believe it, but I would say that
that's like James Toney-ish. That's like James Toney level. You're putting on that kind of weight. That's a lot of weight to put on. But going back to Devin Haney and his father, there is this narrative that you have to have someone who cares about you to a point, but isn't overprotective of you. Is Devin Haney's father doing a disservice to him when he promotes the fight, but in a way where he backs Devin into a little bit of a corner? Do you think that?
No, I don't. I'm not sure. I think one of the things that happens is sometimes, we get down on people when they lose fights, or we're always looking to explain. You're talking about two elite fighters, two of the best fighters in the world, and Ryan Garcia is good too. Sometimes you got to say the other side was good, right? Is Bill Haney the best trainer in boxing? No, not. But he is a very good trainer for Devin Haney. And I mean, if we stop this at the weigh-in after Devin makes weight, so he makes weight again. So he's never missed weight in his career. He's never been knocked. Well, yeah, he was knocked down once in his career prior to that, right? He got knocked down by Jorge Linares, right? So he had been knocked down one time in his career, but he was, 31-0 with 15 knockouts. He was on everybody's pound for pound list. And if you stop it there, Bill Haney was manager of the year. You're going to say, wow, he did a pretty good job. Now we go forward with the fight, and Devin loses to another good fighter, and now all of a sudden, we're going to pick on Bill. And I think, was Bill Eddie Futch? No, he's not Eddie Futch, but I think he's a damn good trainer, and he's done a good job with Devin. I think he was dealt a bad hand because his son happens to have a tough weight cut on the night when the other guy decides not to cut weight. And so Ryan goes into the fight, feeling strong and good. And Devin goes into the fight feeling, I had to make weight. I made it, but it was not great. So I just think it's, some circumstances.
Let's turn to the fight real quick. What did you have it scored? I
had a 113-111. So I had it 6 rounds to 6. And then 3 points off of for the knockdowns, and then the 1 point off Ryan for the point deduction that Harvey Dock gave. So I had, if no knockdowns, I would have had a draw 114-114, but I had a 113-111 for Ryan Garcia.
The one thing I didn't like in the fight, and which made it hard for me to really judge, because I had it 7-5. Devin Haney was really grabbing at points where it looked almost amateurish, which I thought whether it was a close round or not, I was going to swing towards Garcia just because he seemed a little bit less amateurish.
Well, I thought Garcia looked to hold a lot too. So I thought Haney held in the rounds where he got hit and got hurt. And he didn't have that. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like a couple of times, he grabbed and fell down and went the waist, and he fell down. So I kind of felt like, he did that. But Ryan held a lot too, right? Into a lot of those rounds, and he wasn't throwing punches in some of those rounds. And so I think, that they both did a lot of holding. They were both warned. Remember, Harvey stopped the fight at one point and told them both to quit holding because they were grabbing each other, right? That tells you something, about it. I just thought that they both did that a lot.
I thought the optics just looked bad for the fight, but you mentioned Harvey Dock. Wasn't his best night as a ref.
No, I think you have. I think back to you being from Philadelphia. Steve Carlton in 1972 won the Cy Young Award. He won 27 games, but he had a couple games where he was hittable, and and Sandy Koufax had a couple games where he was hittable. Greg Maddox, and I think that happens once in a while. Even the greatest have bad nights, and I think Harvey let the fight get out of control. Right, everything conspired against him. Devin is not a guy that I think looks to hold. Now he gets buzzed early in the fight. He's had a tough weight cut. He's not feeling good. Now he gets buzzed. He wants to hold on. Ryan is not in shape to go 12 hard rounds. If Devin had that iron chin and you couldn't be knocked down, and Ryan had a push for 3 minutes of every round, I think he was in trouble. So he's looking to hold. So Harvey's got to pull these guys apart. And the way the knockdowns occurred, where when Devin, when Ryan jumps after the knockdowns, and all that, and Harvey's trying to get him to the neutral corner. I think he had a tough fight to work, but I don't think he handled it his best way. I think if he had it to do over again, he would make some changes.
I mean, there was a point where he was literally picking up Haney from after he'd been down and bringing the other guy to the corner. I'm like, this is not a good look for Harvey at all. And he's usually good. He's usually pretty good. I think he's a good ref. Just a bad night at the office. I'm going to chalk that up to.
I think Harvey's probably right now the best referee in boxing. There's a number of good ones, right? But I think Harvey right now is probably the best. But yeah, that was one where he gave up, 6 earned runs in 2 1/3 innings.
Yeah, that earned run average just skyrocketed on one night, and it wasn't good. So let's go to the loser first. Where does Devin Haney go from here?
I think, the fight for him probably would be a rematch if, from his standpoint, right? I think, he wants to right the ship, right? He's, now in their personal series down 4-3. As pros, he's down 0-1. And, he's getting knocked quite a bit. Hey, this guy that wasn't taking things seriously, that didn't hardly train, dropped him at least 3 times. And, you could argue in the 7th round, those other 2, when Haney went down, you could argue they were knockdowns because Ryan was throwing punches at him. And
yeah.
So, you could argue that he was knocked down 5 times in the fight, right? I think for him, getting that back, proving, hey, that was circumstance that night, that would be the key thing.
Would you put him in with somebody? Well, I don't think he'll get the rematch for Ryan Garcia, but I'll get to that in a second. Would you put him away from a puncher at this point?
Yeah, I think somebody like a Sandor Martin would be a guy that maybe you see him come back against, right? I think that's maybe what they'll do with him, come back, get him a guy that's, not one at the highest level, but given, he's given Teofimo Lopez a hard time, Mikey Garcia a hard time, he beat Mikey Garcia. I think those would be, that would be the kind of guy that maybe we would see him fight.
Okay. In my personal opinion, if it was me, and I obviously I'm nowhere near as managerial expertise as anybody. I'm not a Fred Sternberg at all. I would put him in with a Matias, and the only reason why is you got to get that fire back. I think he could outbox him. I think Matias is very, in quicksand. If he hits you, you're gonna go, but you got to hit him. And if he could shore up a little bit of his stuff, you put him, and he is right back into the fire, right back into the top, pound for pound list again, because Matias seems to be the boogeyman.
Isn't that the fight that Hitchens is now, in line for? He won the mandatory, right? So,
Hitchinson disappointed me a little bit. I think Hitchison took a step backwards. Maybe you put those 2 in, Hitchison and
lost the fight. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't good. It wasn't good for all the stuff he was talking. And his problem, similar to what Devin Haney did here, was talk down to that opponent as if he wasn't a good enough fighter. They're calling Ryan Garcia a C+ fighter. That's not good, because at the end of the day, you lose to that guy.
C+ fighter.
And now you're a C+ fighter. Use the Joe Paterno method. Always say your opponent is better than he is. That's what you should do. So that turns.
Favorite football teams, by the way, in college football teams. Pitt never played Penn State.
Well, hey, what the hell? Penn State, but we're on a roll here. We're doing very well, though. Penn State has a good recruiting year. They're going to do very well. Watch, they're going to turn it around. Hasn't been the same. No, hasn't been the same since Paterno's gone. But that's a whole nother animal there. But as we look now to Ryan Garcia, his doors have opened up to the world at this point. He says he's not going to 140. Says he wants to go to 47. I mean, hell, he's never made 140. To be honest with you, and 140. So what's the difference? He never was a 140 pounder. He should be a 47 pounder. Where do you see where do you see him now as his options?
Well, I did a story today. So I started to write the story because an online sports book, sportsbetting.ag, put out lines on 3 fights: a rematch with Haney, a rematch with Gervonta Davis, and then Conor Benn. So they put lines on those 3 fights. So I was just going to write a short thing up, and then I said, it would be interesting. Who do I want to see him fight? So I recommended 2 names. Obviously, I think Devin, would be in that mix. I would recommend Devin, but I'm going to recommend 2 different names. So number 1, Teofimo Lopez. Imagine, people thought Ryan Garcia was crazy. Now you got Teofimo Lopez. And you put the 2 of them going at it. Oh my God! And think of it. They're both offensive fighters. They both punch. They both talked about moving up to 147. Teo said he wanted to fight Terrence Crawford. Ryan said at the post-fight press conference, I can't. But they could also go at 145. They could come up with a contract. There's no title at that fight. That's just a good fight. That is one fight that I think would be good. The other fight, it would be Pitbull Cruz. They've had a little history. They've gone back and forth. They were talking about fighting at 135. It never got done. They had they shared social media stuff back and forth against each other. Never saw the fight happen. But then, Pitbull comes back and he knocks out Rolly Romero, and he's back on top, only with that loss to Gervonta. I think that's another fight that would be, bombs away, and it would be a fun fight. And I talked to Pitbull's manager, Sean Gibbons, and he basically said, you know what? He goes, yeah, I think Pitbull would be good at, 43, 44. He goes, and knowing him, he goes, I haven't talked to him and asked him. He goes, but he'd probably take 47 too, just to get the fight.
I believe that. I really, truly believe that, because he's that type of fighter. You say those were the only options there. Let me throw this out for you, and you tell me if I'm crazy. Well, first of all, the Lopez fight I'd love, because the father and Henry, that would be tremendous. Those two there, the press conferences would be great. What about if out of the blue, either Ryan fought Fundora or Ryan fights Errol Spence?
Well, I don't know that I like either one of those fights for reasons that I will lay out here. Fundora, number 1, Ryan would be moving up, 2 weight classes. He's never fought at welterweight. He's never been a world champion. So now we're going to get him a unified championship fight at 154 when he's never won a world title in his career. So I don't know that that makes a lot of sense. And I think matchup wise, that's a tough matchup for him, right? The Towering Inferno is a tough dude, and your power is a lot different at 154 than it is at 143 when the opponent's 140, right? You're talking about a 6'6" guy with an 80-something inch. I think he's 81.25 inch reach.
I thought it was 82, but it might be 81.25. It might be same difference.
Something, like a massive reach.
Right.
It's heavyweight, it's Tyson Fury-esque. I think Fury is 85 inches. So you're talking a 154 guys in the ballpark of Tyson Fury. That tells you what kind of reach. I just don't see what kind of fight that is. Having said that, now if I thought that Errol Spence would fight at welterweight, okay, I might be more into that. But Errol Spence is no longer a welterweight, and I think we're going to see Errol fight 54 or even 60.
You don't think Errol Spence would shave a couple pounds to come down for a fight like that? Because there would be no belt on the line. The only reason I say that, I think that is a safer comeback fight than him going up to 54.
So yeah, Garcia is a safer fight for Earl.
Right.
Then I agree with that.
Big money.
Big money. Why are we making that fight? Like, where does that fight have any logic? Because you're coming with a guy that's coming off a loss, right? Mm-hmm. So it's always, if you're going to talk about moving up and all this, right? Usually you don't like to put a guy who lost against a guy who won, right? That's usually something you don't like to do. And so I know in both fights that I suggested, that would be the case, or at least no, take it back. That wouldn't be the case, right? Because Ryan won, so we'd be talking winner
Right.
versus winner versus winner. So yeah, so that's not the case. So I take that back. But against Earl Spence, it would be, right? So that's something they don't like. But I just think the size is too much, right? Earl clearly, I think. I picked Terrence Crawford from the first day anybody ever talked about Spence and Crawford fighting. I said I thought Crawford would win the fight. I love Errol Spence as a fighter. I said I thought Crawford would win the fight. This is long before they ever fought. When back in the top ranked days for Terrence Crawford, I thought that Terrence would beat Errol, and he ended up doing that. Weight wasn't an issue then. We saw, like, I do that preface, George, only to segue into the fact I don't want to make it sound like I said weight was the issue and the reason why Errol lost to Terrence. I don't, but I think it had something to do with it. Errol has outgrown the welterweight division. And again, Ryan, who is he beating at 47 that would get him a guy that was pound for pound? And I think a lot of people still have Errol on the pound for pound list.
I think I mainly go at as because Ryan just calls everybody out. He's the only one out of those four guys with the tank and that those four quartets that is legitimately saying, I will fight Pitbull, I will fight Tank. Went and fought Tank, went and fought Haney, called out Tank. And I think he's crazy enough to say, you know what? Because sometimes you got to dare to be great. If there's no contract, no title, whatever, Spence is coming off a loss, and it was a bad loss. And I think Ryan's hot. I think there's going to be a huge.
But how does that help Errol?
I don't think it does. I think Errol wants to. I think Errol would want to take off the hot guy, try to knock. Because why? What would help him with Fendora? I think he beats Fendora pretty easily. I think Errol Spence. This is a hot guy coming off of a win against who they thought was pound for pound best. Come in there and you beat a guy like this. They were talking about Haney jumping up another weight class to 47 anyway. So now you have a guy who's coming in hot. Real hot, strike while the iron's hot. You can make a fight where I think coming off of a loss of the magnitude that he had, and I think he put a beating on Haney. I think he put a real bad beating on.
I'll use your logic then, right? I'm going to use your logic.
Yeah, go ahead. Hit me with it.
So if we want Haney to be, Garcia to be jumping up all these weight classes and doing all this, why don't we wait until May 18th and then say he'll fight the loser of Fury and Usyk? Because what the hell, he'll fight anybody. So have him fight the Fury Usyk.
A little different.
Come on.
No, I'm telling you, I think it makes financial sense because if this fight went the other way, Ryan Garcia's checked out and he's got to be relying on sponsors that probably aren't going to pay him as much as they would because he's not as viable. This is a time where if he strikes while the iron's hot, and sometimes you have to dare to be great. It's similar to what Terrence Crawford would have liked to done with Canelo, but he just couldn't work out. Why not take a shot? I mean, I would love that fight.
Again, you have to look at it from Errol's perspective, right? If Errol fights a guy that's just, a 54-pounder or, even a 60-pounder that's not a legit contender, but he beats that guy, that guy's had wins in the division, he gets something out of that. Hey, I moved up. I can't make 47 anymore. I moved up and I beat somebody in my weight class, and now I want to fight one of the big people, whether it's Fendora, Zoo, or whoever else that he would want to Madrimov. I'm Madrimov. I know it's going to fight Crawford, but I'm just throwing names out there, right? But what does Errol get for beating a guy that's been a 40-pounder or less, a lightweight for most of his career? Errol's been a welterweight for, what is Errol's record? 29-1.
29-1.
So 30 fights. Earl's been a welterweight. One fight, Ryan's been a 143-pounder, and he's been a lightweight every fight other than that. Mm-hmm. So how does that benefit Errol? Why would Errol want to take that fight? There's no benefit. There's only downside to Errol and no upside to him. And I don't know that the fight is big enough that sells like big numbers. So I think, let's get something. But the two I mentioned, Teofimo Lopez is in his weight class as a guy that they've talked. Pitbull is in his weight class. And I think you can make those at catch weights, and they would be fun, entertaining fights. Like, do you think if you knew going into 2023 that Ryan Garcia would fight, 2024, he would fight Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, and Isaac Cruz, you say, man, that's going to be a fun year of fights for Ryan Garcia, right?
Right.
I'm not saying he's going to fight both of those guys. But if it turns out, and I don't think we're going to see him fight again for a while. I think he's going to be on the sidelines for a while, is my guess. If that's the case, if that's the case, I think, it just doesn't make sense for Earl. I don't think, George.
I just thought if Errol could, I always say boxing is done with you. You're never done with boxing. I think Errol's on the end there. I think he's on the end, and I thought maybe this would be a massive fight where you can cash out for it, because I think once you have those eye injuries, once you have these things, I was actually leaning towards Fundora if Spence fought him. I actually was, and I thought it was a dangerous
fight. I mean, I think Spence would beat him, but I think Fundora would have a chance to beat him, right? So there's some fights you go, like when Spence fought Ocampo, they could fight 100 times and Spence is going to win every single fight, right? It's never going to change, right? But like a Fundora fight, you say, okay, I think it's, 53-47 in favor of Spence. He's going to win the majority of the fights, but Fundora, is good enough on fight night he could rise up. Same thing. Hey, look, if you look at my prediction I made just in the LA Times, that if you look at Manuka Kopian tweeted it out on Saturday, he queried about 10 boxing writers and got their pick, and every one of us picked Devin Haney to win that fight. But what I said in my first sentence was, if I knew Ryan Garcia is mentally strong, this is an almost impossible fight to pick. I wrote that before the fight, and I sent that to Manuk, right? Mm-hmm. Because they were so even, right? We knew talent-wise they were so even. But you're going to some of these other fights, and it's a different story. So I think, to me, hey, if he wants to go to 47, great. And if Boots Ennis is available to fight him, okay, I'm into that. That's a good fight. I just don't think they'll put Boots Ennis in that fight with him. So I say Lopez and Pitbull, he has rivalries with both guys. They're makeable fights. They're guys, both guys have belts. Not that Ryan wants to, but they are champions, right?
Right.
I know Boots has a belt, but Boots did not win his championship in the ring.
Correct.
Right? So I don't look at Boots as, Terrence Crawford is the IBF welterweight champion, and he's the undisputed welterweight champion. And that's not to diss Boots, because I think he's a tremendous fighter. But but these other two guys are champions, and so I think that says something.
Well, the good news is this is all exciting news for boxing.
Yes.
If we can just get the fights made, I think either way, there is excitement around boxing. I mean, that Barclays Center was incredibly electric that night, whether they gave tickets away or not, which, by the way, have you heard about the pay-per-view sales or no?
We won't know that, for a few days, but, I don't think the pay-per-view number was significant, but
does that matter? Does that matter in this fight? Because it was a big fight. Do you think it matters as much?
I just, I think Ryan scared a lot of people away, right? I think it had the potential to be, Devin is not a big draw. Ryan is a draw. We know that. They gave away a lot of the tickets. So, right. Barclays holds close to 20 for boxing. And they announced 14, and I'm going to guess they probably had 8,509 in the, that actually paid to buy tickets, right? And they had to lower the ticket prices down. But Ryan, I think that was because of the nonsense that Ryan was doing before the fight, and people were concerned, hey, is this fight going to actually come off? And when he missed weight, hey, there's a legit, hey, I was going to the fight until the last minute. And then I said, I'm working on my own now. If I was at Yahoo in the corporate paying, I'm going to the fight, right?
Right.
I'm on my own, and I'm paying those, and I thought, I cannot afford to pay this if the fight does not occur, right? I couldn't afford to fly to New York to cover an Arnold Barboza Devin Haney fight, right? It had to be Ryan Garcia and Devin Haney. And I wasn't 100% sure that was going to happen. And I think, Devin is not a draw, but Ryan is. And so that had the potential to be a good, solid pay-per-view fight until, what happened. Now, maybe, like the Mike Tyson effect hit Devin. And, Mike's craziness got a lot of people interested in his fights. And, maybe Ryan picked up some, people that bought the fight because, hey, they heard how crazy Ryan was acting and decided, they just want to see the train wreck, right?
So does everybody. Everybody loves to see a good train wreck. But again, the exciting news is fights are coming up this month, next month. It's loaded here coming up in the next couple months. So that's the good news. Where they could find this information, KevinIole.com. Kevin, what do you got coming up?
Well, today I did a bunch of stuff. So I did an interview with Teddy Atlas, which is on my YouTube channel, and I also put that on KevinIole.com, so you can find that there. I did a column on Ryan Garcia, talking about, as I mentioned, who he's got next. I did a column on Conor McGregor today and his return to UFC action. And I should say, George, I should tell you, I had one of my pre-fight stories on Ryan Garcia gave me my largest traffic ever in the history of KevinIole.com. Very much larger than anything I'd ever done. So I was pretty stoked to see that pop up.
Well, that should tell you he does have that star power. He does move the needle. In the words of Dana White, he is a needle mover, this guy. And again, it's KevinIole.com. You do put out the good content. You follow you on YouTube, like and subscribe to our channel as well, to Kevin Iole. They can follow you on Facebook. They can follow you on X. They can follow you on Instagram. Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com. As always, it is a pleasure talking to you, Kev. Thank
you, brother. Once again, I'm just going to end this interview by saying, where is Dennis?
I tried to get him on today. He just, he's going to the gym now. So he's we used to call him Fat Diz, but now we call him Skinny Diz. So he's going to the gym now. So, the gym is more important than us, evidently.
Apparently. Come on, Dennis, what's wrong with you, bud?
I know. He's going to come on the next couple times. I'm going to get him on. We have a bunch of fights coming up, UFC stuff coming on. So we'll definitely have him on as the triplet facing this little smear here.
We got the group going, so we'll have the double Z and the KI in there.
But either way, though, I'm going to be the best looking guy on the stream.
There's no doubt about that.
All right, Kevin, good to see you again. KevinIole.com. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.